Good evening, everybody. It is almost 6:30 in the evening. This is my fourth try to record this. You know why? Because the dogs keep screwing things up. That barking and chomping away at their food and coming over. Just fourth time. I am so fed up. Last time I was almost done, and I just it's Friday, and with your Friday comes a video. And today's video, we're doing the third video. I said video too many times. Today's the third video of the triumvirate, the three-part review of the Ollo Audio S4R sound signature. We did the bass, then we did the mids, and now we're doing the treble frequency, the higher frequency. And what are we looking for? Well, we're looking for whether or not these headphones get sibilant, and if they do become sibilant, whether that sibilance is ear-piercy. Therefore, that ear-pierciness takes away from the enjoyment from the mid-frequency. And not the high peak treble region, but the lower treble region. Whether we lose the detail. Now, before we get started, I would like to point out a couple of things. If you go on Ollo Audio's website and you look at their studio headphone, you click on their link at the top, you are taken to their page about their headphones, and they have a graph up there. There's a red line and a black line. The red line designates the open back S4. The black line designates the S4R, the closed back. This is their tolerance. This is what Ollo Audio tries to tune each and every driver to. When you order an Ollo Audio headphone, it's hand-built, and it's hand-tuned, and it's quality controlled by an individual, and then it's hand-packed, and then it's hand-shipped. Obviously, a hand has to ship it. But they try to make each driver, respecting which type of headphone you purchase, as close to this graph as possible. This is their tolerance graph. This is their standard graph. And one thing you'll notice with the black line, which is the studio headphone, is that there seems to be a peak around the 8K to 10K to almost probably about 20K when it starts rolling back down. There seems to be a peak. And that would designate potentially that there is a sibilance issue, that there might be a peakiness issue. It's not a really flat headphone. Well, that's what I thought initially, and then I took a closer look at their standard graph here. And what does the standard graph show me? Well, it shows me a couple of things. Number one, you have to compare this peak to the other peaks in this graph. So the first peak I would ask you to look at, if I can, yeah, here we go. Does that increase at all? No, it does nothing. It just increases this. It's not helpful. Can I look at this? No. You know what? This is great. I was able to do this before. Now I can't. Anyway, you look at the peak at the 8 and 10K region, and then you have to compare it to the bass and sub-bass peak. Starting around 40 hertz, where it starts rolling up slowly, gradually, and probably around 100 hertz, it's reaching its maximum, its zenith. 200 hertz, it's still there, and then it starts rolling back down. And at 400 hertz, there's this significant dip compared to the 200 hertz, and then it rolls back up into the mids. You compare around the 100, 200 hertz to the 8, 10K region, and if you look at it, the bump is not particularly huge when you compare between the bass and the treble region. Now, there is a bump. And it is slightly bigger, but that's the thing. It's slightly bigger. But then also look at the mids. After the 400 hertz frequency, it starts rolling back up gradually. You get into the 500 hertz range, 500, 600, 700 hertz range. And it's already reaching its next zenith, which is around the 1K and up into the 2K. And once it's reaching that peak, compare that peak to the peak at the 8 and 10K. The 8 and 10K peak is slightly more than the peak here between the 1 and 2K. That is true, but it's not significant. So when you look at it, when you compare one major frequency to the other two major frequencies, the mids, the bass, the treble, then you look at the peaks, you tend to see that it's, even though there is indeed a bump, the bump relative to the other frequencies is not ultimately all that significant. Okay? So that's how I look at this. Whether or not this turns out to be true is what we're going to find out. My hypothesis is that, yes, the graph seems to show a significant increase just by looking at eyeballing it. But when you start comparing to the other frequency range, you tend to realize that it's not really a huge leap. So my hypothesis is it's not going to be a huge difference, and that even though there is a slight bump, it's not going to be enough to cause sibilance and ear pierciness. Now that I've stated my hypothesis, let's go test it out. The first song we're going to test this on is the Scherzo for X-Wing by John Williams from the Star Wars Force Awakens, The Force Awakens from J.J. Abrams. This song is orchestral, has wood, brass, wind instruments. And immediately as you start to play the song, it can become really ear-piercing because you have a lot of brass instruments that just start belting out. I have the headphones plugged into the Monolith THX AAA desktop, negative 23 decibels, and as the song is progressing, we're going to increase the decibels, increase the volume, and then we're going to keep experimenting that way. Here we go. At negative 23 decibels, this is very comfortable listening volume. All the instruments are playing, the brass, the wind, very gentle to my ears. I'm going to increase the volume to negative 18. Still not ear piercing. Clear separation amongst all the instruments. Indeed, you can tell that each section of the instruments, the brass, the wind, the percussion, they all have more than one instrument there. It's just the way that the song echoes, each frequency echoes, and that's a good thing. You can actually tell. I'm going to increase the volume to negative 14 decibels. And I have to say, this is really loud. At negative 14 decibels, the song is incredibly loud for me. I would never sit here and listen to the song at negative 14 decibels on this pair of headphones. Now, I may crank up this for my monitors, right? My computer monitors. But I would never do it for my headphones because it's too loud for me. The speakers that I have, the Kanto speakers, there's plenty of room. There's plenty of air in my room, and it'll just reverberate. That's not an issue. But the headphones, too loud. Let's go back to about 1 minute of the song, and there's brass instruments that come in, and it goes da 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 da. The typical Star Wars theme. Da 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 da. When it hits that part, it can get really sibilant. Right? That's really, really peaky. Negative 14 decibels. This is as loud as I'm ever going to take these headphones. And it didn't get sibilant for me. I mean, it came close. Like, it came to my comfort threshold because I'm very sensitive to sibilance. But it wasn't enough to cause any pain, any discomfort, keeping in mind that any louder, and it probably would make me uncomfortable. Let's start at 105 and test one more time. Yeah, not sibilant. I mean, it's really in your ear. There's so much energy in this song that if I took this louder, it would start becoming very unpleasant for me. At negative 14 decibels, it's still not sibilant. It's not ear piercing. It's not sibilant. There's still great clarity in everything. Good separation within all the instruments and within all the instrument group, the group sets. Meaning, you have the brass, you have the wind, you have the wood, you have the percussion, all that sort of stuff. And when the brass is playing, there's more than one brass instrument. There are multiple brass instruments. Now, I can't sit here and count. That's not what these headphones do, and I don't think it's even possible. But you can tell that there are multiple instruments in that group, just with the way that the sound reverberates in the headphone. It's very natural, very clean, nice. Now let's go to Flight from the City from Johan Johansson. Flight from the City is a piano-heavy song. There's a lot of detail in this. The micro detail is of the pianist moving back and forth on his piano bench. And there's that creaking in the piano bench. And there's this kind of this low electrical buzz in the background all the way down in the layers, the bottom layer. And some headphones pick it up. Some headphones do not pick it up. But that's a very sub-bass frequency. I want to see if this headphone picks that up. But number two, how the headphone reproduces the piano. Because one thing we do know for a fact now is that the NDH-20s do not play well with piano. It just sounds tinny and terrible. And it sounds like you're sitting inside a shipping container being shipped from Europe to the Americas. And you're stuck in there with a piano, and you have to listen to that piano for a month as you travel the ocean. That's how the NDH-20 makes piano sound. Now let's test how the Ollo audio sounds. And I'm going to bring the volume back down to about -20. I'm comfortable at -20. And here we go, Flight from the City. Great micro detail. You can hear very cleanly the movement on the bench, the creaking. I can hear the electrical buzz. It's not overemphasized. It's somewhere in the background. And when the piano is not playing, I can hear it still sizzling and buzzing. When the piano is playing, the electrical buzz is really hard to decipher. There's this really interesting representation of the piano. It doesn't sound tinny. It doesn't sound like it's in a shipping container. Very different from what I remember the NDH-20 being. I would say that the piano it's almost like you're sitting right there, right next to the piano. You are 2 feet away from the piano, and a world-class pianist is playing on a world-class piano, a grand piano. That's how it sounds to me. Incredibly clear, but you still hear that, some pianos have this kind of inherent muddiness to them in their frequency, because you hit down on the key, and then there's this little lever that strikes the string that's tightly wound inside the piano. And because of the wood, the type of wood, the size of the piano, the size of there's sometimes the piano sounds a little bit woolly, a little bit muffled in a way. And that's just how pianos sound. And I have to say, this sounds like listening to a piano in real life. It's a night and day difference from how I remember the NDH-20. Now, obviously, memory is bad with respect to sounds and smells, but especially sounds. And I don't have the NDH-20s on my head right now, so I can't say, but from my recollection of every time I listen to them on this song, it has a tinny sound signature with piano. But with the Ollo, it's not tinny. It just seems, the only word I can describe is natural. And it tends to have a very neutral, natural representation of the piano. Now, earlier on, I said that the electrical buzz was kind of drowned out, or I couldn't hear it easily when the piano was playing. Now, about 1 minute into the song, that electrical buzz is mixed in louder with the piano still playing, and I can easily hear it. And there's a clean differentiation. The electrical buzz is not overemphasized in any way, shape, or form. It's just there. And if you listen to it, it's because it's meant to be listened to. It's not bleeding in to the piano frequency. It's not bleeding into anything. It's not disrupting any of the other frequencies here. Let's keep going. I think this is a cello that's also playing. And originally, when I heard this song, I thought there was only one cello, but I feel as if there's at least two. Because I hear one that seems to be slightly slower than the other, just very slightly. And it could just be me. I could be wrong about that, but that's the way I hear it right now. The cellos, that frequency is clearly different from the frequency for the piano. And the cello sounds incredibly smooth. And I think there's a violin that just came in, very different tonality from the cello, and once again different from the piano. I gotta stop. I am really surprised. I am really, really surprised about this. That this pair of headphones is able to take all of these very powerful instruments. The piano is a really robust instrument. You have a violin that can be really peaky. You have a cello that can be really soothing or really peaky, depending on how you play it. And then you have that electrical buzz. You have all these layers of detail and micro detail. And the headphone just presents everything as it is. I am... So here's the thing. Right around 2 minutes of this song, all the instruments start coming in. It's a gentle song. You can decide to pay attention to just the piano, or you can decide to pay attention to just the cello, or you can decide to pay attention to just the violin, or you can decide to pay attention to just the electrical buzz in the background. It doesn't matter what you pay attention to, it's there. And you can decide to pay attention to everything, which I tried to do. And I tell you right now, that's a lot of things to pay attention to because it's presented to you in such a clear manner. I'm frankly surprised how undistorted, unmuddy the sound is with this song. It sounds really, really good. Now, this is not my favorite way to listen to this song. This is, I think, a warmer sounding headphone, slightly warmer sounding headphone will probably benefit this song for me. But I have no complaints with this headphone with this song. Let's move on to 1,000 Years from the Piano Guys, another piano-centric song. And once again, with the NDH20, I remember this song not playing well. Here we go. So on this song, the pianists are playing the pianos at the higher frequency range, whereas with A Flight from the City, it stayed in the mid and the lower frequency. So you have the violin, you have the piano. The violin is not peaky. It's just so soothing and soft. Gentle sound is what I would say. The piano doesn't sound like it's in a shipping container. It doesn't sound airy, but it does sound natural, as if you were sitting in a decent sized room, let's say a music hall, and you are, say, 2 or 3 rows away from the stage where the piano is. That's how I hear it, and it's just really nice, smooth, clear, undistorted. Very nice. Now, there's somebody strumming on the violin as the piano is playing, and you can hear the strumming is clearly different from the piano frequency. You could hear that gentle strumming. Now, if you've ever heard somebody strumming on a violin, it's not a guitar, so the strumming is not particularly vibrant. It's a kind of a dull type strumming, depending on how you play it. And the frequency is significantly different from the frequency of a say, an acoustic guitar. But if you're strumming the violin with the bow, it's kind of a dull sound. And that's how it presented itself here. But you could hear it. It wasn't overpowered by the mids. It certainly wasn't overpowered by the piano, which is the higher frequency range. So much detail here. I'm just surprised to hear the piano, the violin, the other piano, the strumming of the violin on the right ear cup, clear soundstage and separation. I would say there are probably like 4 or 5 or 6 instruments playing right now, and all of them are coming through really clear, undistorted, and separate. Most importantly, separate. And once again, not peaky. Fantastic. Yeah, that's nice. Now, I want to try something else. I want to go to Master and Commander. The Far Side of the World. If you haven't seen this movie, by the way, Master and Commander, watch it. It's a really good movie. And by the way, it is based on a true story. It's based on a series of books. And the story in the book is in fact based upon real life adventures of a British captain in the, I think, 1800s. And the exploits of the real person are significantly more bombastic, more heroic than the exploits in the movie. So the movie doesn't actually live up to all the stuff that the actual human being did. It's really fascinating. Well, anyway, it's not about the movie. Let's go to La Musica Notturna. This would be second to the last song, I believe. And here we go. No, that's not the one. There's another Musica Notturna. Maybe it's this one. This is it. Okay, so this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This is the 8th song down. It's 2 minutes and 1 second long. This is Quintetto Indo Maggiore, la musica notturna delle strade di Mad. I don't know. I don't know why it has to be that long, but 8 down. Okay, that's the one. Now there's a violin and then there's a cello. The violin could possibly become really peaky. This is such an amazing, beautifully recorded song because there's, I think, only 2 or 3 instruments here. The cello, or the bass instrument. I'm sorry, it's not a cello. It's a bass and it's the violin. And the violin is so damn smooth. It's got all this energy and it sounds crystal clear. I'll take it up to about negative 16 decibels. It's at negative 16 and still sounds so smooth. Not even remotely peaky. Now, I said there are only 2 or 3 instruments, and that is the case. There's just a lot of instruments. There's a group, only 2, 3 groups of instruments, but there are multiple players in that group, and you can hear that. And now you can hear the bassist, kind of strumming on the bass instrument, and it's just such a nice frequency. It doesn't get muddy at all. And the bass, the violin are playing at the same time. You can hear the bass as a separate tonality, and you can hear the violin as a separate tonality. And I tell you this, I would absolutely listen to this song at negative 16 decibels on these headphones all day long. It's that wonderful. Okay, I better stop before I keep going. First of all, this is a great movie, and this is a great song as part of that movie. The characters actually play this song in the movie, but whatever. Fantastic. Oh boy, I have to say, was my hypothesis correct? Yes, I think my hypothesis is correct. That even though there seems to be a bump in the treble region, starting at 8K and not until about 20K does it come back down, that even though there seems to be that giant bump, when you compare it to the rest of the frequency range, it's not really a huge bump. And depending on the song, it may become slightly uncomfortable for you, or it may not be uncomfortable at all, as I just showed you. There was a song where I thought, I couldn't take it past negative 14 decibels. And then this last song, I thought, shoot, I can take it up to negative 16 decibels and not even worry about it. Listen to it all day. And that's not a terrible thing, right? It all depends on the song and how you prefer to listen and your particular tastes. But I don't think this headphone is peaky. I don't think it's treble friendly. I also don't think that you will be susceptible to having to deal with a lot of treble and that sort of stuff with these headphones. I just don't think these are ear-piercing headphones, as opposed to the 1770s, which are terrible headphones, and nobody should ever buy them. And Bear Dynamics should give a refund to every human being on the planet, even though they didn't buy the headphone. It's a war crime to build those headphones. There we go, 25 minutes in, and we have completed the 3-part sound review of the Ollo Audio. I am very, very glad I got these headphones. I am so glad, because I can say after 3 videos listening to this headphone that I completely agree that these are one of the flattest, if not the flattest headphones, the most neutral headphones I have heard to date. I am not exaggerating. You've seen my equipment list, so you tell me. But I say to you now, flattest headphones I've heard. And not dull. Definitely not dull. They're different. This was a good experience. Now, next time, possibly tomorrow, what we're going to do is compare the Ollo to the NDH20. And let's see if the Ollo can beat the 20 and if the 20 can hold its own. I have a hypothesis, and my hypothesis is that the NDH20 is going to get its butt kicked. And we will see. We will see what happens. I hope everybody has a wonderful Friday. Thank you so much for subscribing. Thank you so much for everybody who went to my online forum, the Google document forum, to make requests for reviews. And as the reviews come in, I put them on a completion list that you also have access to, and you can take a look at what the expected completion dates are for your requested reviews. There are some reviews that people have asked for. I don't have the equipment, so I can't do the review if I don't have the equipment. I may get the equipment at some point, and if I do, then I'll go back and do the review because it's on that list. But look, if I have the equipment, yes, no problem. But if I don't have the equipment, I'm not going to go out and buy the equipment just to do a review unless, hey, if you want to pay me, if you want to give me money to buy that equipment, I'll be happy to do it. But right, I don't think I need to go into it anymore. I hope everybody has a wonderful Friday, great weekend. Enjoy your Friday evening. And hey, try to sleep in Saturday. If you don't have to work, sleep in. If you do have to work, hey, sleep in anyway. I don't know. So happy with the Ollos. Have a good night. Thanks, everybody.